they took that away at the last moment, and then I canceled the whole thing, and then 6 months later
you better go out and buy stock now. Let me tell you, this country will be like a rocket ship.
$1 trillion a year, now we're not losing anything, you know? That's the way I look at it. We were losing with China on trade $1 trillion a year, more actually.
Trump has placed a massive ban on Russian imports. Unexpectedly, this bombshell rocked all of Wall Street. But what if we told you that through this buzz, the President of the United States has said nothing? Meanwhile, some market watchers and vocal Democrats are accusing Trump of using the ban to manipulate the market.
Is this market manipulation?
No.
Why not? If it was a plan, if it was always the plan, how is this not market manipulation?
They claim that Trump might have intentionally created opportunities for insiders to profit from the swings his tariffs made. But whether or not these theories are true, here's how one man's words are shaking up the entire global stock market. Here's the lowdown. Since Trump's first ever term in office, he indicated that he was ready to attack every other country with import taxes, popularly known as tariffs. Tariffs are taxes which are imposed by a country's government, typically on imported goods, to increase their prices. Oftentimes, the consumers bear the brunt of these increases, and in turn, the imported goods become less and less attractive to consumers. Customers cannot keep up with the price hikes, and on other occasions, the import taxes disrupt the flow of global trade. It wasn't until May the following year that the US, Canada, and Mexico reached a deal to remove the tariffs. Barely 24 hours after these outrageous tariff announcements, American trade partners refused to be sitting ducks and had hit Trump with their own sanctions. Could it be that Trump weaponizes these import duties? If so, then how exactly has he been doing it? Back in 2018, Trump announced a 25% tariff on steel and a 10% tariff on aluminium imports. The order was signed on March the 8th, with a 15-day delay. At first, several countries, including Canada, Mexico, and even the EU, weren't affected, but by the final day of May that year, they all became subject to the tariffs. It wasn't until May the following year that the US, Canada, and Mexico later reached a deal to remove the tariffs. Now, this isn't something that's out of character for Trump. As far as the 1980s, Trump has always been an advocate for using import tariffs as a tool to regulate trade and retaliate against foreign nations that he believed were hurting America.
Because I don't need anybody's money. It's nice. I don't need anybody's money. I'm using my own money. I'm not using the lobbyists. I'm not using donors. I don't care.
Even while he was campaigning for the US presidency, Trump promised to use tariffs to achieve a wide range of goals that included preventing war, reducing trade deficits, improving border security, and subsidizing childcare. Now that he's become president again, he's stuck to his guns. Under the Trump administration between January and April 2025, the average effective US tariff rate rose from 2.5% to an estimated 27%, the highest level in over a century. But recent times have exposed how messy the playing ground has become. On April the 2nd, a day he called Liberation Day, Trump announced another set of tariffs. First of all, there was a 10% import tax placed on almost every American trading partner, affecting everyone from Britain to Brazil, and taking effect on April 5th. Even crazier were the additional country-specific tariffs that ranged up to 50%. According to Trump, these tariffs would be placed on countries that either charged higher tariffs on US goods, imposed non-tariff barriers to US trade, or had otherwise acted in ways he felt undermined American economic goals. These tariffs were supposed to come into effect on April 9th and were going to affect anybody from members of the EU to Japan and even South Africa. But Trump's offensive was only just getting started. China took the hardest blow as Trump placed a 104% levy on exported goods from the country. The consequence was a quick battering of a series of tariffs. In the end, the US announced a 145% tariff on Chinese goods, and China responded by imposing a 125% tariff on American goods on April 12, 2025. Thankfully, Trump left some certain sectors untouched. These include copper, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, lumber, bullion, energy, and other materials that aren't available in the United States. However, that was the ultimate 1-2 punch. We thought the sanctions against China were an overkill, but what was coming was even worse. Trump's next move was about to crash the stock market, then somehow bring it back up again. Trump announced a new set of tariffs against America's biggest foe, Russia.
Оркестр исполняет фанфару «Наш президент», написанную специально для церемонии вступления в должность.
The tariffs targeted Russian oil, and there was a terrifyingly high chance that they might reach up to an outrageous 500%. Now, as we all know, Trump, a Ukrainian ally, has tried almost every trick in his playbook to get Putin to stop his attack on Ukraine, but the Kremlin has refused to budge, and that response was unprecedented. Their bold adamancy was bound to shake things up, but no one could have expected the outcome.
Parties get this war ended. We're losing 5,000 soldiers a week, Russian and Ukrainian soldiers, and other people.
Announcing a 500% tariff on anybody, much less Russia, wasn't just another bold policy. This was the equivalent of tossing a Molotov cocktail into the global economy. We all knew Trump was a bit unconventional, but to be honest, no one expected that he'd do anything that crazy. And everyone's level of unpreparedness showed in the results of the market afterwards. The figures were staggering. Right after Trump's announcement, the markets took a complete nosedive, with the S&P 500 and Nasdaq plunging, wiping out trillions of dollars in value. The immediate result of Trump's actions meant that oil prices all over the world surged. Energy stocks also spiked seriously, and the ripple effect hit everything from gas prices to green energy funds. Fearing a full-blown trade war, investors had gotten into a panic. The initial tariff announcement triggered a massive panic sell-off. S&P 500 stocks dropped by nearly 6%, and the same thing happened to the Nasdaq Composite. While the Dow Jones Industrial Average also took its third largest point loss in history at a fall of 5.5%. Within just 2 days, across April 3rd and 4th, the American stock market lost nearly $6.6 trillion in value. It was their largest 2-day loss in history by a margin of $2.2 trillion. This was the biggest stock market decline in the US since 2020, and that was because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Even the US Treasury bond market came under pressure. The 10-year benchmark government bond yield, which moves inversely to its price, fell after Trump announced the tariffs, and by Thursday, the Treasury yields had started to drop. Amidst all the craziness, some people were not panicking. In fact, at Wall Street, it was a party. Why? Barely 24 hours after these outrageous tariff announcements, American trade partners refused to be sit-ducks and had hit Trump with their own sanctions. His hand forced? Trump walked back on the controversial reciprocal tariffs. Yes, Trump announced a 90-day pause on many of the tariffs, but kept the steep tariffs on China. On April 9th, through his Truth Social account, Trump announced that reciprocal tariffs above 10%, which had gone into effect earlier that morning, would be paused for 90 days for all countries except China. In a dramatic turn of events, the markets rebounded hard. And the result? Well, let's just say the S&P 500, which tracks the stock performance of 500 leading US companies, posted its largest single-day gain since 2008. That's a whopping 9.52% in gains. The Nasdaq too jumped by 12.2%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average grew by nearly 3,000 points. Now, here's where things get a bit interesting. Some market watchers, and of course Democrats, are accusing Trump of manipulating the stock market by using these tariff announcements to create volatility. Their theory is that by announcing those very harsh tariffs, Trump might have created opportunities for insiders to profit from the swings. And there's some evidence to support these claims. Just about 4 hours before Trump announced the pause in tariffs, he made a post on his Truth Social platform saying, "This is a great time to buy." Now, of course, this could just be him giving some financial advice to the average investor out there. But wait, there's more. There's a widespread suspicion that some investors might have been aware of Trump's intentions to pause the tariffs before he even paused them at all. Here's why. Less than 20 minutes before Trump announced that he was walking back on the tariffs, there was a huge spike in Nasdaq call volumes. Now, if you're wondering what that means, a call volume means how many call options people are buying. And what's a call option? It's simply a bet that a stock is going to go up in price. And if a call volume spiked just before this big of a news, there just might have been something really sneaky going on behind the scenes. The official explanation for his walkback was the counter tariff imposed on America. But with all that's coming out, who knows? But whether all of this was a carefully thought out scam move or not, the real question remains: how does it affect you and I? Going by economists' prediction, America could be headed for pretty hard times. The tariffs raise business costs and international trade. Worse still, they could result in retaliatory tariffs from other countries. America's long-term economic growth could be reduced by around 6%, and wages? Those could fall by almost 5%. Guess who will be hit the hardest? The middle-income earners. Already, China's stuck back with their own tariffs on American agricultural products, hurting farmers in the Midwest. The longer this drags on, the more everyone loses. And it's not just the average Joe. America at large, if Trump goes ahead, runs the risk of isolating itself from the rest of the world. If other countries decide that the costs of doing business with America are too high, they'd only go on to find cheaper alternatives, leaving the states high and dry. And guess what? He could be out of office by then. But of course, these are all possibilities and we don't know anything for sure. The only thing that is certain is that right now, in international trade, Trump's word is law. And whatever he does, or so much as says, is capable of flipping the stock market on its head. But what do you think of it all? Could Trump possibly be intentionally shaking the market? Or are these tariffs really being done with the aim of making America great again? Let us know in the comments, and remember to subscribe too.